All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Serenativa, and I am the VP of Technical Sales Consulting here at Appspace, and I will be your moderator during our time together. Today, we are here to talk about a strategic reset in how we think about and leverage AI tools in the workplace. Most organizations have the tools. What they're really struggling with is getting those tools to actually improve how work gets done day to day. So our session is really about unpacking that, not just from a technology lens, but from an actual workplace lens. Why isn't AI delivering the value that companies expect, and what actually needs to change in order to make it more useful? But before we get started, we just have a few quick housekeeping rules. First and foremost, everyone has been muted just to make sure that there's no background noise during the actual conversation. We've also turned all of your cameras off to ensure that everyone has a fantastic experience during our time today. And we will also be sending out the recording post this webinar, so keep an eye out for any of the notifications there. We do have time reserved at the end of the session for any questions that you might have, but if there's anything that comes up during the conversations, please feel free to also drop them in the chat as we go. Now, back to the topic at hand. I am so excited and grateful to be joined by two of the most brilliant minds I have the pleasure of knowing. Jacob Morgan is the founder of Future of Work Leaders and the author of The 8 Laws of Employee Experience. And in his spare time, he's a world-renowned expert on how the workplace environment shapes the human experience. We also have Thomas Philippart de Foy, our Chief Design Officer here at Appspace, who really is an expert on how we can actually design these digital environments to be more unified and be more productive. They're going to help us get past the AI hype and really look at what it actually takes to drive real ROI in today's workplace. So to get us started, Jacob, you've spent a lot of time studying and writing about employee experiences and how work is continuously evolving. When you look at what's happening right now, what do you think organizations are getting wrong about AI?
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for joining. Of course, obviously the AI space is a very, very interesting one to be following and paying attention to. But one of the big problems I see in this space is that organizations treat this as just another tool that they bolt on top of their existing ways of working. So when you don't make any actual changes to how work gets done and you just kind of slap in another tool there, you start to see some challenges and problems with the ROI and with the benefits of using these tools. And so that to me seems to be one of the biggest problems in there. I think another one is for leaders out there. We're so quick to give everybody these AI tools. We don't think about any potential negative consequences as far as outsourcing critical thinking, outsourcing human judgment. And so leaders in general are not thinking about the potential implications to work in general, and also to offloading any kind of human judgment, discernment, and critical thinking to these AI tools. And I think those are two big areas that companies should be spending more time thinking about.
And when you're seeing all of these different AI tools, and we know that there's, a disconnect between what's possible with the technology and what it's actually used for. We know that there's a disconnect between what leaders want their organizations to use these tools for and what's actually being done with them. What do you see as some of the biggest disconnects between actual AI investment and the results that they produce at the end of the day?
Well, there's I think it's called Solo's paradox, where Robert Solow, I think it was in 1987, he was talking about the computer age, and he basically said you can see the computer age everywhere except in the productivity statistics. And I think we're living through a very similar time when we think about AI. And it's because leaders in pretty much every organization, they want their employees to use more AI, more technology, use it, go. But there's not a lot of clarity on it. There's no vision, there's no direction, there's no explaining what the big picture is for their employees. And so there's really a lack of clarity on the employee side. They're trying to figure out, well, what am I using this for? Am I replacing myself? What is the goal of me using these tools? Am I going to be evaluated differently? Is my performance going to be looked at differently? Am I supposed to be working less? Am I supposed to be working more? Am I competing against these AI tools? What exactly is happening? And so organizations, I think, are doing a very poor job when it comes to giving clarity around AI and what the intent and the goal behind these tools actually is. So there's, I think, a lot of work that remains to be done, and a lot of areas of improvement for companies, especially leaders running those companies.
And do you see that ambiguity over the usage and the purpose of this as being part of the problem, why it's having a difficult time translating into actual productivity gains, or are there other factors at play there?
I think there could be a lot of areas. So obviously, the issue of clarity is certainly a big one. When you look at the enterprise productivity numbers, if you were to ask any individual employee, are you seeing productivity gains? A lot of employees would say yes. Oh, it's improving my ability to do work here and there. But it's much harder to quantify that and see that on an enterprise level, right, across the organization as a whole. And interestingly enough, today, I mean, I am not really aware of any case studies or examples of organizations out there who have demonstrated a very clear ROI, specifically when we look at these LLM tools that are out there. And that to me is a little bit of an interesting paradox because, usually in the past, through any kind of tech evolution that we've had, whether it was looking at steam engines, whether it was looking at the printing press, before we've made massive investments in a lot of these types of tech evolutions, we were typically able to show productivity gains, and then we made the investments. And it seems like now for a lot of organizations, they're making the investments in anticipation of productivity gains, but they're having a hard time demonstrating those at scale. And so I think it's for a number of reasons, right? I mean, there's the clarity aspect of it. There's the training aspect of these tools, which a lot of employees are still trying to figure out, how do I get the most out of them? There's the measurement itself, right? How do I actually measure the ROI? If I'm saving time in a particular task, but I'm just reinvesting that time back into work, how do you quantify that? So I think there are a lot of challenges across the board for being able to show a clear ROI. I mean, one area where you see organizations saying that they're demonstrating this is specifically in coding, because in coding and development and engineering, that's a very clear area where if you have an agent or some piece of software writing code for you, either the code works or it doesn't. It's a very clear way to demonstrate whether these things are working or not. But in other areas, marketing, sales, HR, there's no clear yes or no, right? There's a lot of verification, double checking, oversight, a lot of kind of human in the loop type stuff. So in the areas where it's more nebulous and ambiguous, it's much harder to demonstrate and show a very clear ROI.
I think that's an excellent point, especially when the technology is moving so quickly that I think, to your point, companies are building ROIs and building ideas behind what the potential of something might be without fully understanding how it works within their day-to-day environments, within their industries, within their type of business. All of those other factors aside, how do you think that the employee experience factors into all of this as well?
Well, I think AI has tremendous potential to impact the employee experience in a positive way in a number of different areas, and we don't need to go through all of them. But from a data standpoint, I think AI helps leaders and helps organizations know their people better. Now, I want to also emphasize, I don't think using AI is a substitute for kind of the human connection and relationships and knowing your people on a human level. But the data, the insights, the analytics, all these things that you're able to learn about your organization and your people is, I think, of course, fantastic and tremendous. Employees being able to reskill and upskill themselves and develop customized career paths, right? Maybe you're in HR and you want to transition to sales or to marketing. Being able to use these AI tools to create these pathways, these custom learning pathways for yourself is tremendous and extremely powerful and important. Being able to augment some of the mundane aspects of your work. Maybe you're in HR and you're writing job descriptions. Maybe you're in marketing and you have to write a lot of copy for something. And so I think it's giving us a unique opportunity to focus on the more the human aspects of work. So there are a lot of ways where I see positives as far as how AI can improve and enhance the employee experience. But I think we also need to spend more time talking about some of the potential negatives and how do we solve for those, and not just focusing on the positives.
Yeah, absolutely. And, over the past few years, we've heard a lot about the productivity paradox, having so many different tools and so many different applications that it actually has the opposite effect when it comes to productivity, is it becomes a
Yep.
lot of a distraction and it becomes overwhelming for end users to understand what they should be using and how. Thomas, building on that, if the issue isn't the tools themselves, what's really missing from how organizations are approaching this?
Um, I think the reality is it went very fast. And although everyone was expecting AI 3 years ago, I don't think leaders were expecting it to be so loud. And they rushed. And I think Jacob mentioned it really well. It was almost FOMO, fear of missing out. So you went in all in and you took the biggest partner on the market and you bought another app from them and you hope that was it. But the reality is no one needs another app. What we really need is something that is connected to already all the workplace applications that people are dealing with every day. So it's instead of adding another app and hoping this is going to give you an AI strategy and a leading edge as an organization, is what workplace productivity apps are you already using and what AI exists within those. Now, there is time to market. 3 years ago, most of those companies didn't have anything related to AI. And that's probably why companies just took the avenue of buying another one, a standalone one, and figuring it out from there. But in the last 3 years, pretty much any leading product out there has built AI in. But having AI as part of the workflows, I think, is really what is going to help get more value out of it instead of another tool.
Yeah, and you talked about building AI into the workflow of how a business operates and functions. And I think adding AI tools is so easy. You buy a subscription, you download a thing, you open a browser, and you've got all of these different applications available. But what does an AI-ready workplace actually look like?
Well, I'm sure there are many versions of what it looks like. And I can tell you in the design world, having AI part of Figma that our designers work and live with and every day just helps them be more efficient in the work they're doing. It's not replacing them. I don't know how Jacob feels about it, but AI is not going to invent and create. People are, and people will always be needed for that. And we should be using people to create and to drive AI, and then AI will do a lot of the execution work, which is great. Claude just announced Claude for designers, which is a big milestone for us in our work. The fact that it's built in and it's available for us and that it can integrate with Figma and with other of the tools that we're using is important. I think in the workplace, it's the same thing. I think employees don't need another app to access information or content or create content. They need to be able to do it where they already reside every day. And probably a handful of those apps that they deal with every day that they would like to be able to leverage AI from.
Absolutely. And we keep talking about all of these different systems, and you had mentioned, incorporating them into Figma or incorporating them into the flow of how employees work. With so many different tools and options out there, why do all of these disconnected systems really limit what AI can do?
Because AI is only as intelligent as the system it has access to and the data it has access to. And it's the same as when you're building an assistant. If you build an assistant and your prompt is poor, the service of your assistant and the value of your assistant will be poor. If your AI lives in silos, if your workplace management data lives in silos, if your comms data lives in silos, then AI doesn't have the value. It requires the access to information it requires to bring true value. So what we need is integration. Now, again, it's a race right now, and technology is evolving super fast. Model concept protocol is very fresh, very new, but it's helping those connections, and that's what's exciting. I think there's a reason why AI has been failing to date for large organizations, and that was the fear of missing out and rushing, as Jacob mentioned, going for it immediately without really strategizing. But it was also because the technology was not there, but it's getting there. And as it's getting there, we're going to be able to integrate more. And as we integrate more, AI will be more valuable.
And what would you say actually changes when we incorporate AI and have it operate inside the actual flow of work?
It's simple, everything becomes easier. Instead of employees hunting for information, now information finds them. Instead of them switching between applications, action happen where work is already taking place. And instead of reacting, organizations can start anticipating. I mean, it's really AI becoming invisible is the best possible way, and that's the goal. It's just there, and it's anticipating and helping you out throughout your journey.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. AI being invisible but effective, I think, is the goal that everybody is striving for. And really, if it's not about adding more and more AI tools to, the plethora of different systems and applications that people have access to, where does this actually come together for employees? Where do they experience this?
I think they experience it in every app they've been using for many years. It just pops up. When you're writing an email, it pops up and helps you write your email. It already knows what you're trying to say because it understands the context on the email based on who you're sending that email to and based on historical emails that were provided. When you're looking to go in the office and you're opening your app to book your desk, it already knows where your colleagues are sitting, what you have in your agenda for the day, what would be the most valuable resource for you, and it goes and books it for you. When you're connecting on the intranet, it's there to tell you, here are the latest news that apply to you, here are the latest updates in your communities. You don't have to go and search for it.
Yeah, and you actually brought up the topic of intranets or workplace hubs, communication hubs, portals, you name it. They've changed the name of it over the course of the past decade. But where do you think that the intranet or the workplace hub experience has traditionally fallen short?
With the history of the internet, so maybe Jacob, you'll help me out on this one, but I think the internet was built as a repository of the information for all employees for the company, and employees had to go and search for it. And if there's no real reason to go to the intranet, people forget about it, and when they don't log into the intranet, it's wasted time. The problem with AI is if you don't strategize correctly on how AI integrates with the intranet, it's going to show you all the caveats of the intranet. It's going to find you information that is outdated, and it will amplify it. And that's the danger with AI. Is AI that is not well managed will amplify your gaps. So it will make up things, and it will start to push the information that is not important and valuable. So I think that's a big. But I think, Jacob, you have a lot to say around intranet.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first got involved in this space, when I wrote my first book on the future of work in 2014, right? The internet was kind of the big thing that everybody was focusing on, their intranets, their SharePoints, their this, their that, and there was a lot of challenges with that. So I think we've seen a very interesting and a good evolution since those days.
Yeah, I think so as well. And intranets were very complicated to set up in the correct way because you had to think about your users experiencing it in so many different ways. You had your navigators, the people that would click through and try to locate what they're looking for. You'd have your browsers, the individuals that go to a destination and then try to drill in a little bit more. And then you had your searchers, the people that, wanted that Google search experience of just going in and finding the information and then getting back out again. And now we have, this population of people that just want the right information presented to them. They don't want to go hunting for this content. They don't want to be an expert of the intranet. They just want that source of accuracy and truth. So as we're thinking about how this experience, the intranet, the workplace hub, continues to evolve over the course of the next 10 years, what really needs to change for them to be effective and to be useful again?
Is that for me or for Thomas?
We can start with you, Jacob, and then we'll go to Thomas as well. I'd love to hear from both of you.
So specifically what we can do to make intranets more useful again?
Yep.
I think we need to kind of redesign them, right? I mean, if there was a way to make intranets sort of the front door for the enterprise, which I know was the original vision and the idea behind intranets, then there could then there could be some potential there. But it's just an area where so many of these organizations have struggled. And it's funny because you don't even really hear a lot of conversation about intranets anymore. Most companies don't typically talk about them. I don't hear it come up with CHROs. I don't hear it come up with business leaders that I'm speaking with and working with anymore. Everything is so focused on the concept of AI. And so, I mean, for me, if organizations were able to figure out a way to truly make these intranets the front door from the enterprise, then perhaps there could be some sort of a resurgence of them coming forward. But it doesn't seem like a lot of organizations out there are really doing that or thinking about that in any way. It's still kind of, in most cases, just viewed as just a legacy tool, a legacy platform that exists. It's just kind of kicked off to the side now for, I think, a lot of people.
Yeah, and Thomas, would love to hear your perspective as well. Hearing this idea of it being a legacy tool, is that because it's a legacy platform or it's a legacy experience in how people were accustomed to getting their information?
I think both and more. I think it's, you must have an intranet, but no one really loves their intranet. I loved the vision behind the original intranet, like Jacob mentioned, this front door to the enterprise. I see the need to redesign it, and I think it's happening in the industry, and we've been really focused on making it the front door to the converged workplace, which is not only the digital but also the physical workplace, where employees can have a place where they experience things instead of looking for information, where they can discover information, complete tasks, access services, engage with other colleagues, because that's the whole challenge of the converged workplace, connecting the digital and the physical and getting people to engage and obviously interact with AI along the way. So I think what's important is that we can't separate communication from AI strategy. They need to be put together. And that's how we're going to be able to start driving that change and bring back the intranet to the forefront, where people are actually excited to go into the intranet because they're going to live an experience. They're not just going to be accessing information.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, they also need to stop calling it the intranet because it's such an outdated concept, right? But I mean, if you can imagine it as kind of like the dashboard of how you get work done, where you maybe have an internal talent marketplace, you have an AI engine that's recommending courses and things that you should be learning. You have, a scorecard of yourself as an employee in there. You have workers, kind of like a cockpit for how you get work done. So it's the thing that you log into in the morning, and it's your dashboard, your control panel, your operating system for how everything gets done. And so I think if there was a way to reimagine that and build everything into something like that, that would have enormous potential. And that's very different than just having like a file repository where you go through and you kind of click and look at documents. But I think the idea of being able to have, like I said, a skills or a talent marketplace, opportunities that are available for you inside the organization, learning pathways, building all of that into a single environment that kind of guides your work during the day would be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I think that whole idea of just helping employees understand the facets of their work and the facets of their, potentially careers within a business is really great. This idea of, what am I doing? What should I be doing? What could I be doing? How am I doing, as a dashboard view that an employee experiences, with AI really powering that in the background, I think is a great way of thinking about it. And when it comes to, communication and access to information, we see report after report after report that talks about how, 72% of employees are feeling left out of the loop of key updates and corporate initiatives. And we've got about 97% of them that say missing information has a negative impact on their ability to do their work effectively. And this is really not just about communication problems and engagement problems that we traditionally hear with intranets. This becomes an execution problem for a lot of organizations and employees. So when we're talking about some of these things, how do you guys see this information breakdown impacting that AI adoption and that AI execution? And maybe Jacob will start with you, and Thomas will follow up with you as well.
Hey, it's one of the things I alluded to earlier. When you have lack of clarity, everything else breaks down. I mean, that to me is the thing that is lacking most inside of organizations. Clarity around the goal behind AI, clarity around how employees should be using AI, clarity around if it's going to change performance and evaluation, clarity around where AI should be used, clarity around where we need the human aspects of work. And so you hear some of these stories and examples of organizations who are embedding AI into every aspect of work, from one-on-one interviews to hiring to recruiting. And then, you then take a step back and say, well, if AI is doing everything, where is the human involved in this process? Like if I'm going to have a one-on-one interview with my leader and I know that they're using AI tools to kind of just script and ask me questions, why even talk to them, right? Where's the humanness from there? And it seems to be lacking, and we see this a lot with organizations who are trying to embed it in the hiring process, where now instead of talking to a human, you'll just have conversations and discussions with an AI bot, and an AI bot will score you and evaluate you and this and that. And it's kind of like, for me, the most important decision that an organization makes is who it brings into its four walls. And if you're having an AI screener do everything for you, you miss understanding the potential that somebody has. You don't get a good sense of challenges that somebody's had to overcome to get to where they are. Like, you don't see the person as a person. You see them as just, a scorecard. And for me, that will lead to a lot of very much missed opportunities. And so I think there's a lot of challenges around clarity with AI and where it should be used and when it should be used. And I don't think organizations are thinking through that. For example, if you look at not just hiring, but who should be promoted. So if you're using AI to decide who should get promoted, who should be put into a certain role, that's something that impacts the livelihood of a human being. And so should we really be relying on AI tools and technology to make these strategic decisions that impact the livelihood of other people inside of our company? I think that's probably taking it a little bit too far. If you want to use it to optimize, to make yourself a little bit more efficient in the current state, that's great. But I think completely giving control to some of the most important and strategic business decisions inside of an organization to AI, it's probably premature to be doing that.
Yeah, completely fair. Thomas, your perspectives on it?
No, I agree with Jacob. I think there are a lot of things that we can do with AI today that are not driving the strategic direction of an organization or the people that we onboard or how we manage them. I do also think that if you want to drive a smart AI strategy, you need to have smart people at the core of it. And often we think that just because we're going to give you AI, you're going to become smarter and you're going to be able to do much more and drive more strategic initiatives. But that's not necessarily true. So it starts by putting the right team in place to drive your AI initiative, and that's challenging. And then it's step by step. It's not everyone has access to all of it and you go run for it, but you also run POCs and measure and see what am I improving? Am I improving velocity? Am I improving quality? At the end of the day, I'm being on a design organization, I believe in talent and creativity, and that's not going to be replaced by AI. But can we do more? Can we go faster to code? Yeah, for sure. I think there's definitely benefits there.
And we did get a question here as well, because we keep talking about the human element of it, the human experience side of it. Looking at this new AI future, is implicit personalization still going to be relevant in hybrid and frontline heavy organizations?
I mean, for me, when I think about AI, there's tremendous opportunity for personalization in there, right? Because AI can do things that are specific for you. It has the ability to look at everything that you've done. I mean, well, at least everything that the AI has access to, and then develop, customize, whether it's training pathways or learning or upskilling, reskilling. So for me, I think there's tremendous opportunity in that area for personalization and customization. But again, you still need to make sure that you have the human element in there too, right? I mean, if you're outsourcing everything and you don't create that human layer, it gives challenges. Right? I mean, look at what Meta's doing, where they're trying to clone Mark Zuckerberg so that everybody has access to a digital version of Mark to get leadership advice and questions. And so if you know you're using and you know you're talking to an AI Mark Zuckerberg, it's not quite the same as being able to sit down one-on-one with Mark and ask him specific questions. Right? There's this idea of when you know you're talking to a bot, you know you're talking to AI. It's hard to take it as it's hard to take the advice that it gives you as valuable compared to when it actually comes from a leader who you admire and respect and want to emulate versus a digital clone of that person.
It's funny you mentioned the meta use example, Jacob. I see myself arguing with AI quite a bit, and sometimes getting extremely frustrated and overreacting, almost throwing my laptop out of the window. No, I'm joking, but which I would never do with a human being, with a colleague. So I think this whole AI thing is kind of breaking the real relationship in the conversation through which you solve problems, which is really important. But back to the questions around implicit personalization, I definitely think AI is the gateway to personalization, and personalization is needed. We saw a big organization who decided to move their whole global organization to one single language. And all communication was moved over to English, no matter whether or not you were Spanish speaking, German speaking, Chinese, Mandarin. And that started breaking communication channels, and people felt less engaged and less connected. AI will help bridge this. I understand it's hard for a global organization to communicate to all employees in their own language, but with AI, we're going to be able to do this. So I think personalization is going to help create that intimate relationship with each employee and make them feel like they're part of something that understands them.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. We always used to talk about personalization as, groups of individuals, whether it was a department or a business unit based on language or location. And it really sounds like AI is opening the door for almost like a hyper personalization, which is very individualistic to the person rather than these big, broad groups that might not really hit the mark for any one particular individual very well, but rather just tries to, blanket throw information, assets, and resources at a wider net. But we keep coming back to this idea of the human aspect of this, the people side of things. And I'm sure we've got a lot of listeners on the call today that are leaders within this organization. So when they're starting to think about their AI strategy, what should they actually do differently after coming out of this conversation? So for example, what are 2 to 3 things that HR or IT leaders should be focusing on right now?
I'm happy to start. I think first, reduce the app sprawl. I mean, stop adding new apps thinking that's the way you should handle AI. Every new tool you introduce to your employees creates friction. And we don't need more friction in our days. We're already busy like hell and have too many things to deal with. AI should simplify work. It should not add another software scavenger hunt. The second thing is we need to improve communication consistency. And I think Jacob mentioned a lot of the confusion with employees around what's the role of AI, what it's going to do. And I think we're seeing so many AI initiatives run through different departments that we're confused. Employees are confused at what is the role of AI. Employees can only act on information they can only act on information they received. If they didn't receive it, they can't figure it out on their own. And then the third is, I think AI needs to be part of workflows. I think that's the natural way for it to work and really play its role of an assistant, where it's assisting you in being more effective, more productive, happier in your environment. So I think if we did this, then in this case, AI is no longer a destination for employees. It's just where it needs to be, when it needs to be, for the purpose it was created.
So Thomas, I think, talked more on the technical side. I'll talk a little bit more on the human side. The recurring theme has been clarity. And so I think that there needs to be a lot of clarity from leaders for their employees around what these tools are for, why they're being used, et cetera. I think there should be some clear guidance if we're trying to look at ROI and benchmarks, how we're actually going to be doing that and what that looks like. I think there also needs to be a very clear distinction around what AI should be used for and where we still value and need to prioritize human judgment and decision making and discernment. I think that is a critical element. And I think another layer that nobody talks about is what I call human prompting. And this is a new emerging skill that leaders are going to need to have, which is that if you know that everybody on your team and everyone in your company is using AI tools to get work done that they are then submitting to you, then as a leader, part of your unique job now is going to be how do you pull out the unique human insight from the work that your employees are doing if you know they're using AI. So you have to ask them certain questions. You have to pull out their critical thinking, their judgment, their discernment from the work that they're giving you. And so we're so obsessed with putting in the perfect prompt into these LLM tools that leaders are now going to need to figure out how do we prompt our humans to get the human out of them. And so that to me is a very interesting and emergent area that nobody is talking about because it's very easy, for example, as a leader, if somebody submits work to you to just say, okay, thank you. But if I know you're using ChatGPT or Claude to do it, you could just be copying and pasting and delivering things to me. I need to be able to get you through the work. And that to me is I think a very interesting area for leaders to be thinking about. And it's a completely new skill that leaders didn't need to put an emphasis on before. So I think that's, kind of on the human side, those are some areas that I would be focusing on.
Oh, and just to add, Jacob, I have 4 kids at school, and teachers are starting to be challenged that way as well. They're trying, like you to say, to understand what came from the students themselves versus what came from AI engines, and trying to differentiate. And it's exciting to see that this is happening at the younger generation, because this will obviously have huge impact when those people hit place in a few years from now. But yeah, great point.
And I think we keep hearing, clarity is important to start doing. Incorporating the human element of it is incredibly important. Building it into the workflows is really important. Jacob, I'm going to start with you from an HR leadership perspective. What are things that they should stop doing right now?
Oh my goodness, stop doing. So I think one of the important things that are important to stop doing is just stop telling everybody to learn AI. I think what a lot of people forget is that telling somebody to learn AI is the equivalent of telling somebody to learn the internet. The internet became, in 2007, it became a new infrastructure, a new foundational layer on which we built on top, lots of other things. And so telling somebody to learn the internet can mean learn what? Do I need to learn how to build a website? Do I need to learn search engine optimization, pay-per-click? Do I need to learn how to hack things? Do I need graphic design? Like, what exactly do I need to learn when you say learn the internet? And the same thing is happening inside of organizations. We tell employees learn AI, but learn AI is also this new kind of infrastructure layer, and we're building lots of things on top of that. So what does learn AI mean? Am I just learning how to prompt? Am I learning how to build applications? Do I need to learn how to code? What exactly are you telling me to do? And I think really when leaders are telling their employees, when HR is telling everybody to learn AI, really what they're trying to tell them is you need learning agility. You have to be able to be adaptable. You have to be able to learn new things and to apply the things that you're learning. And so I think reframing the conversation from learn AI to just have that learning mindset, be adaptable and agile in all aspects of your work is a much better reframe. AI is certainly a part of that, but it could be lots of other things, like how do you solve problems? How do you structure and build teams, right? There's lots of learning agility that is relevant that goes beyond just AI. And if you focus on that aspect of it, then you are encouraging more of the critical thinking, you're encouraging more of the human decision-making, the discernment. So I think that's certainly an important area as well. I think another element, and this is one where I think a lot of HR leaders struggle because they themselves don't even have the clarity around the impact that AI is going to have to their business. And so it's a little bit of a catch-22 because employees are coming to the HR leaders and they're saying, hey, what's going on here with AI? Are we cutting headcount? Are we growing? Like what is happening? And HR leaders themselves don't even know the impact of AI. And so they don't have much to give to their people because they themselves don't know what this is all going to mean. And so I think it's very important to have honest conversations with your people if you're in HR, and to change the messaging. And the way that you change it is you don't tell your employees anymore that you can guarantee them any form of job security and job stability. You have to reframe the conversation and say, look, we don't know how AI is going to impact your role in the company going forward. Like, it's progressing at a crazy rate, and it's clearly making an impact on how we work and the jobs that we have inside the company. But here's what I can tell you. If you like the job, you like the company, you want to be a part of this organization, take more accountability and responsibility over your career path going forward. Spend time learning how to upskill and reskill yourself. Spend time learning how to be agile and nimble in how you think. Be more flexible in the roles and the opportunities that you can take on. Think more of yourself as a collection of skills instead of your job description. And if you're willing to be more open-minded to different roles, different opportunities, different geographies, different potentials, different paths that you can go down, then you have a much higher likelihood of being able to stay at this organization for a longer period of time. But if you just assume that if we hire you in marketing, that you're going to stay in marketing for the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years, and you're slowly going to climb up that corporate ladder, that sort of assumption is one that you should not have at this company anymore, and it no longer exists. And so having those honest conversations with your people, I think, is worth doing. Not from a standpoint of fear, but from a standpoint of opportunity. Stability is a new trap, I think, for employees. If you are constantly in a stable environment, your work, your job is repeatable, they're not seeing a lot of change and disruption, that's when you need to be worried. So you need to get more comfortable with, instead of swimming in a lake where there's no waves, you're going to get put in the ocean now. And there's going to be some waves that knock you around a little bit. But the good news is, if you know how to navigate that, you're going to be just fine. It's just a different muscle and a different environment that you need to get used to. And I think HR leaders need to convey that.
Yeah, I think that, again, going back to that human element is just incredibly important. Following this call, I will be updating my Slack to busy learning the internet. So won't be available for the next at least month from this point on. But Thomas, would love to hear the technical side of things as well. What should tech leaders kind of stop doing right away?
I would say first, just stop buying AI just because everyone else is doing it. I think that there's that rush is definitely not working. It's not the right strategy. It's an expensive budget that people only discover after the fact. And technology alone, it doesn't transform work. So that's not the way forward. I think the experience does transform work. And so the real question is, what problem can AI solve? And probably that's the next step, is identify a problem that you believe AI can solve and try it out and learn from it. And as you learn how to implement AI to solve a problem, you're going to be more efficient in solving the next problem and the next problem. And do that within workflows. I think it's unbelievable the number of leaders that just took the decision to pick one of the big AI vendors out there, just license all their users and expect it would happen and they would see value. And now they're looking back and they're like, whoa, we're spending all that money, but what are people really doing with it? And most people have just become writers overnight. And no more creation and no more real problem solving. Just everyone can write beautiful emails and tasks and blog posts, and then they're all flat. They all look the same. So I think they're concerned now, but that's probably the first thing to do, is put a pause and bring it to the right teams that can solve a business problem, learn from it, and then start expanding.
And I think all of those pieces, as I hear both you and Jacob talking, we try to create a divide between the technical and the human, but every time one of you speaks, you're always blending the human and the technology together. AI is really bridging those two pieces of an organizational workflow in a very meaningful way, I think. Looking at some of the organizations that we speak to on a regular basis, sometimes this whole idea of AI just becomes so overwhelming. It's kind of like Jacob had alluded to earlier, where it's like, go forth and learn AI. Companies are also feeling overwhelmed of where to start, especially if they're feeling the burden and pain of fragmentation today. What are some of the ideas or some places that they could start if they're feeling that fragmented pain right now?
You want to go? I want to go. I go. All right.
Yeah, sure, go for it. I feel like I've been doing so much talking that I'm like, I feel bad where I keep jumping in.
No, not at all. But I mean, it's where I ended the previous question. I think it's find a real problem and see how AI can solve it. And I think not 50 problems, but start with one workflow. Pick just one heavy friction workflow that employees have to deal with every day. And whether that is just coming into the office, that's one of the biggest friction. And I know we talk about the intranet, but for me, the intranet is much broader than just a web page you go to. It's the office is your intranet as well. And so when you're planning to go to the office, there are so many things an employee has to deal with. Understanding what's happening in the building, who's going to be in the building, where to sit in the building, what resources available to me, what's the restaurant menu, is there a fire drill scheduled at 4 p.m. that's going to disrupt my meeting? There's so many things to deal with, and that's the reason why many people just stay home and they don't have to deal with the commute and everything. So if you say that's the problem, can AI solve this? And yes, absolutely. That's, I think, where AI can bring so much value. So you identify the most friction, the biggest friction you have for an employee, and you start there, and you fix it. And then people, I always believe in what's in it for me. An employee is what's in it for me. And if they see value, if they see less friction, less pain, if they're happier because of it, they're going to want more of it. And then you keep expanding. But that's just an example out of many, I'm sure.
And I'll just add one quick thing to that, kind of on the human level. I think for any employee, well, I think there are a couple things that you can do. For one, if you're an employee who's just trying to understand and kind of grapple with all these things, I think it's important to play around with some of the AI tools that are out there. And this is for people who are just getting started with these things. They're not quite sure how they work, what they do. Just experiment and play around with some of the different options that are out there, just so you get comfortable with it. But once you do get more comfortable with it and you kind of understand the use cases that it can solve, the workflows that you can embed, I think it's really important to imagine your role in 2, 3, 4, or 5 years from now and work backwards from there. And so if you see the speed of how quickly these AI tools are maturing, the upgrades, the plugins that they're adding, the new versions that they're releasing, try to understand how your role is going to change over the next 1 to 3 years. And work backwards from there to try to understand, well, if my role is different in 1 to 3 years and I had to rebuild it from scratch, how would I rebuild it? And what are the aspects of my role that I think would be potentially automated? And what are the aspects of my role where the human side will get a premium? And if you know that, then you can start, to Thomas's point, building those workflows around it and emphasizing what those more premium human skills are going to be. And so everyone needs to think of themselves a little bit, kind of like a futurist in that regard, where you try to anticipate your role forward and work backwards from there. And anticipating is not that hard, I don't think, because you can talk to your leaders, you can talk to your peers, you can look at some of the studies that are coming out there, you can listen to podcasts. Like, there's a lot of resources that are free that you can tap into and just start to get a sense of like, okay, I see where things are going. I'm going to work backwards from there. If you're in design, if you're in marketing, if you're in customer service, like it's very clear how things are going to change over the coming years and what skills and capabilities you are going to need to have in that time period. So work backwards from there and start developing those skills.
That's wonderful. Jacob, Thomas, thank you so much for lending us your brains, your expertise, and your experience on the call today. Everyone that's here, thank you so much for your questions and for listening in. As mentioned at the beginning of this call, we will be following up with a recording of this. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful day. And again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Everyone.